This is a really interesting conversation because we have so many automakers already making electronic vehicles. We talk about Tesla more than any other, but you've got GM, you've got Ford, you've got Nissan, you've got a lot of companies already making electronic vehicles and making them cheaper and cheaper.
Sure. And right now for electric vehicles, the question is when will it reach mass market adoption? And in order for that to happen, it's really all about the price. And what we projected is if you look out for the next 6 years, the component prices of the electric vehicles, the battery makes up about a third of the cost of the car. And as that battery packs continue to fall, we think that by 2022, then electric vehicles will be as cost competitive with their internal combustion counterparts. And that's when you start to see growth really take off, exponential compound annual growth.
Why are battery prices coming down so much?
Well, because electric vehicles are already starting to be adopted, and you see a whole lot of investment from people like Elon Musk with the $5 billion gigafactory in Nevada, but there's additional investment happening all over the world in battery prices. And so as the battery prices fall, you're going to start to see electric vehicles compete. And, there is one example right now of an electric vehicle that is competing on price, and actually that is the Model S. And the Model S is a very expensive car, but it's also going 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. So it's competing with Ferraris and Bugattis.
Except they lose money on every one. I mean, that's not a sustainable business model.
Well, they're losing money because they're investing in the Model 3, which is their next car that's coming up. The Model 3 they're going to unveil next month. And,
what I would say is those costs are capitalized mostly, so maybe that's not where the income statement loss is. But what about the shortage of lithium? Isn't that a headwind here, that there isn't actually a ton of lithium and that we might not end up with entire electrical vehicle fleets in the world?
Not at all. Bloomberg New Energy Finance did a deep dive into all of the components of the battery, not just lithium, but cobalt and all the other components. And all of those will only require about 1% of the world's reserves, or actually less than 1% of the world's reserves by the year 2040. So those are not a concern.
All right, so as we look out towards the future, you really think it's going to have an effect on the ExxonMobils and the Chevrons of the world?
Well, I can tell you that they don't think it will. OPEC currently forecasts electric vehicles to just be 1% of the cars sold in 2040. So what we wanted to do is look at that and say, how quickly could electric vehicles be adopted, and how quickly could that start to affect oil demand? Now, if you look at when a new technology is adopted, say, take an iPhone, right? Once the iPhone became relatively price competitive with other phones and was a superior product, demand just shifts overnight, and it suddenly becomes like not even a question that you're going to buy a flip phone, for example. Now, when are we going to reach that point with the electric car? Well, right now electric vehicles are growing at about 60% compound annual growth rate. And that's an interesting number because that's the same annual growth rate that took Ford to become the mass market vehicle in the early 1900s. It's also what Tesla is forecasting for its own sales through 2020. So if you put the compound annual growth rate of 60% going forward, you end up hitting an oil displacement of about 2 million barrels a year as early as 2023, and that's 2 million barrels a day of demand.
Although,
go ahead.
The one thing we know about Tesla forecasts is Tesla doesn't hit his forecast, but it's one we're going to watch because it's a great